Eagles are something special. The holes that they find themselves in, they seem to be able to do whatever's necessary when called upon.
Philadelphia, last 2 years, is 14-2 in one-score games. I don't want to hear about the league is rigged. Yeah, that's what it is.
Game in and game out, we've been challenged in a number of different ways. We continue to find ways to win. We've shown our resiliency. I mean, it's hard to quantify.
You guys, I'm just going to call a spade at this point, because the 2023 Philadelphia Eagles, they are one of the weirdest teams that we have ever seen. I mean, please, feel free to tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, but it doesn't feel like we've ever seen a team that's looked so dominant at times that we know is dominant from what they've done in their past, yet also half the time, it doesn't look like they know what the hell they're doing. I mean, hell, some people are even going as far to compare this team to the 2022 Minnesota Vikings, and to you, all I will say is please cut the bullshit. In fact, the way that this team is continuing to win football games this season, I'm pretty confident that we are never going to see it again. But before we get into that, today's video is brought to you by our friends at ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN is the #1 trusted private network software across the World Wide Web. And guys, I mean, using the internet without a VPN at this point, it's practically like letting all of your personal information literally sit out there for the taking. But with ExpressVPN by your side, it's as simple as booting it up on any of your devices, connecting to one of their hundreds of private network locations, and just like that, your online privacy and security is in the best hands possible. I mean, I use ExpressVPN constantly, whether I'm editing, researching for videos, or even when I'm on Netflix to gain access to shows and movies that are only available in different countries. It's pretty clear that you can't go wrong with a VPN like this. And if you guys go to expressvpn.com/footballdigest, you can get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN completely free when you sign up. So again, guys, do yourself a favor, check out the link down below and get yourself the one and the only ExpressVPN. Okay, so to get back on topic with the Philadelphia Eagles, again, when you take a look at the overall numbers on the offensive side of the ball for these guys, there's almost zero reason to hate anything that you see. I mean, there's the fact that they're a top 3 scoring offense, a top 5 red zone offense, hell, even a top 5 least penalized offense, and just about everything in terms of playing complementary football through the statistics at least would tell you that this team should be atop of the league as their record does indicate. But yeah, then there's the other side of the story if you're actually watching these games. I mean, don't get me wrong, winning at the end of the day is all that matters, and Jalen Hurts speaking to the resilience of this team earlier in this video, that only adds to that. But Philly fans, I'm sure, would be the first ones to tell you that winning comfortably this season, yeah, it's been a rarity. In fact, with their remaining schedule, they're actually on pace to have the most one-score margin finishes in a season since... I'm not even going to say it. But nonetheless, when you take a look at this team and you're essentially trying to figure out why it doesn't feel like we've seen them play a complete game of football through almost 2/3 of the season, well, sure, you could point to simpler things like poor execution, inexcusable turnovers, etc. But hilariously enough, today we're going to be talking about whatever the this team does at halftime every game. I mean, guys, if you've watched a single game of this team this season, you've seen what I'm talking about firsthand. Because offensively, in terms of their productions of the first 2 quarters, sure, they're formidable to say the least. But then when you get to the second half, saying it's a night and day difference, that would be an understatement. And ironically enough, when you see that drastic difference in scoring, it turns out that the play calling is a lot different right alongside it. Just take some of Philly's most recent games for an example, because as we would expect with having almost the entire same roster, we see new offensive coordinator and Brian Johnson love to incorporate concepts that made this team so successful in 2022, whether that be the heavy utilization of the RPO game, which it seems like the new guy in town in DeAndre Swift has done nothing but fit seamlessly into, a high level of quarterback designed runs to get their QB involved to the largest extent possible, and of course your screenplays, basically a scheme that that's perfectly built out to get the ball into your stars' hands as quickly as possible and essentially let them generate the big plays themselves, which is how Philadelphia attained some of the most yards after the catch out of any team across the league last season. But both the yak counts and the film would tell you that they're not finding that same success this year. And what's really interesting about it is that when you look back to when Shane Steichen was running the show for this offense, using almost the exact same play style and scheme, they quite literally had the most explosive first half offense that we've seen in the last decade. So obviously that bears the question, what's causing this fall off? Now guys, call me stupid in the comments if you think otherwise, but legitimately it seems like once their backs are finally against the wall, that is the only time Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni actually open up the playbook. I mean, the film will testify to this more than anything else could. Because again, with the short game consistency that you see out of this team for the first 30 minutes of almost any game you handpick out of this season, you probably also wouldn't expect these guys to have a top 5 air attack in terms of average depth per target. But that's because in the second half, you actually see these guys try to extend the field. Like, it's one thing to see this team use their wide receivers on mid to deep routes like they do throughout the entirety of these games, but it causes a completely different issue when these plays are specifically designed for the short game, and defenses, they are clearly picking up on it. But what some people don't understand is that it's not like this team is only successful when they're heavily relying on that deep ball threat, but instead it's just the simple concept that they need to use all 3 levels of the field in moderation more. Because, I mean, in terms of having a quarterback that can put a ball on the numbers at all 3 levels of the field, yeah, Jalen Hurts' numbers speak for themselves, but when you're also able to use some of the best receivers in the game, essentially as decoys to only further up the implementation and the efficiency of running backs in the air attack right alongside this, yeah, it's not much of a secret why Swift and Gainwell are 2 of the most targeted weapons in this offense. But what seems to be noticed more than anything when these guys open up the playbook is simply the next step that this guy takes on the field. I mean, I could just show you guys his clutch statistics this season in itself, and that would probably be enough to prove that point. But what also backs that up is how much easier both the pass and especially the run game come to him in these situations. Like, guys, there is a reason that Jalen Hurts is averaging both the lowest yards per completion and yards per carry on the ground of his entire career. And if you think that he is the biggest reason for that, I guess I'll let you think that. But again, just compare any first half mindset to the second half mindset from one of their games this season, and it's not much of a surprise that when he's used in moderation, he goes up to averaging about 15 yards per completion and 10 yards per rush, picking apart defenses left and right, okay? I'm just saying. And trust me, you guys, I get it. There is a lot more to this entire situation than what we just covered with the Philadelphia Eagles in this video. Like, for example, is the opposite side of the ball going to improve it all from their rather below expectation start to the season? But that's also where I want to hear what you guys have to think. So please be sure to let me know in the comments what has surprised you the most, either from the offensive or even the defensive side of the ball with this team up to this point. And of course, if you had to, predict what their record will be heading into the playoffs. But once again, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate y'all more than anything, and I will see you guys in the next video.